When you apply to a police department, they're checking your social media. Well, what exactly are they looking for? I have the exact checklist right here. Let's discuss. Hey, before we get started, I have two gifts in the description for you. One is the Getting Started workshop is going to walk you at every phase of the hiring process for a police officer, as well as some hidden bonuses I think you're going to like. Next is a coaching call with any member of my team or even myself where we can go over discuss anything specific to you, to your social media, to your background, your board interview prep, anything you need to, we can help you cover that in that call. Now, your social media review and what they're looking for when they're doing your social media and background. We recently got access to be able to run full in-depth backgrounds for candidates, and it's not only opened the eyes for me, but for the entire team over here as to what some of the new things that they're checking on, what some of the things that you would never think that they're checking on. And today we're focusing on specifically the social media aspect of it. So I'm going to jump right into this here. They're checking what's called a behavior composition, which is what they find when they run your social media usernames through different aspects. And here's the other thing is you have to disclose all your social medias, because if not, they can run your name and images also through. And if they get other social media usernames that are associated with you, but you failed to disclose, you could be disqualified right there for omission. So, and you don't want that for a simple social media. But you also need to understand that your social media profile is a major impact and can have negative consequences when it comes to your police hiring process. We're going to start at the top of the list. I'm going to burn through these because there's quite a bit that we're checking for when we do your social media check. So all in all, it comes into your behavioral composition. It kind of gives us a graph of where you're at with it and whether you have flagged behaviors or not. So even if you feel that you don't have flagged behaviors, you still might have something out there in the social media atmosphere that could potentially hurt you. Maybe you don't have something up on your social media, but someone else does and you're tagged in it or anything along those lines. All right. So the first thing is any type of disparaging comments or images. Any disparaging posts can hurt you. So what does that mean? It means when you're belittling someone, if you're trying to put someone down, if you're trying to put down a group of individuals or just anything that would be seen as almost bullying or just rubbing someone's face in something. It just, those right there are one of the things that are screened for, and that's where we start at. Next is any type of drug image, right? So if you're doing, even if it's a pretend or staged image, it could still look really bad on you. I know when I run my own social media profile, I will get flags back, and my flags are for another instance, which I'll actually go over here in a second, but I want to get to it in order. But yeah, I'll pop some flags on certain things that aren't necessarily bad, but it will still pop flags and it'll have to be reviewed. So any type of drug image, that will be on there. Any type of drug or alcohol mention. Anytime you mention that, oh, getting drunk with the friends or oh yeah, hey, we're going off to buy some, edible gummies from legal state, from a non-legal state, leaving a non-legal state to go to a legal state. Any comments like that I'm not saying they 100% will, but they could potentially get a flag. And if they get a flag, that's something that they're going to come back to you at during your background interview or during your background phase. They're going to question you on it, and you better be ready to articulate it. So next is any type of gory or violence images. So if you post an image of say an individual getting harmed in some way, or you repost it and you say, hey, someone take a look at this, and your name's attached to it, it could flag, and then they can come to you and ask you, hey, what was your purpose for reposting this, or what was your purpose for posting an image of major violence, and with whatever comment you've associated, or if you just shared someone else's thing because you thought it was an interesting read, but at the same point in time maybe it had some comments in it that were derogatory in nature or disparaging, that could come back to hurt you. All right. Next is politics or government. So you would say, hey, okay, why is this one a big factor? Well, once again, it comes down to an unprofessional manner. If you mention politics or government, you can do that. That's perfectly fine. If you do it in a way that could constitute an unprofessional behavior, right, or a behavior that might be unbecoming, or a behavior that shows significant bias that they don't think can be circumvented, or I shouldn't say not but controlled by yourself. Self-control to control that bias. Are you going to enforce laws on one political or governmental group and not the other? So that is another aspect of prejudice. Anything that can show that you're prejudiced, that you have significant bias towards one group or class of people. Once again, that will be a huge flag. Profanity, right? Using profanity in jargon, or sharing posts that have profanity in them can make a major impact on where you're at, and what we see as a flag for social media, especially if you're the one posting it, where you're saying, explicit this or explicit that, or profanity here. I hate the blank, whatever, or I hope everyone blank it, effing dies, or whatever. Anything like that could be a major factor for your social media review. And once again, it can have some negative connotations to your hiring process. So keep that in mind. Any rude gestures or symbols. So, think once again, profanity, anything where you put up an emoji of, say, the middle finger, that can be used against you. Hey, why did you feel that was an appropriate comment? That's how they're going to ask you. They're going to ask you it's not going to be a yes or no. It's going to be, hey, why did you feel, an open-ended question? And then you're stuck there with that articulation on what to do. And that is it. You're left to your own devices to dig that hole deeper, or to potentially fill it in and be able to get out of it. Anything that is self-harm, and it doesn't even have to be suggestive self-harm to yourself. It could be self-harm to another, or encouraging self-harm on another individual, or to a group. That will be another thing that pops an immediate red flag. And all this will also probably be reviewed by your psychologist. If they see these flags, right, they'll pass this along, because your psychologist gets access to your entire background process, right? Your entire hiring process these days there's very limited information that the psychologist doesn't have going into it usually. Anything that's suggestive, and when I say suggestive, I mean suggestive in an unprofessional manner, right? Anything, and this one kind of ties into everything, where suggestive of profanity, just suggestive of self-harm, suggestive of prejudice. Those are major factors as well. Another one is gory or violent images. I know I mentioned this one before, but if you're putting something like that up, then that's one aspect that's going to go there. But then on the other side, if you have any type of nude imagery, right, nudity, that is going to be another major factor as well. And don't let it be your profile page where you're just out there, in a very exposing situation, right? That's not what we would consider socially acceptable, right? And when I say we, I mean society, not law enforcement. I mean society. Nudity and that aspect, and I had to jump back to that one because I skipped it, but that one can be a major factor right off the bat, because it just shows it for them. They evaluate as a lack of maturity and a lack of professionalism, and that stuff, you're about to become a public figure if you're hired in law enforcement. People are going to potentially try to look you up if you write them a ticket, or if you arrest them, or what have you. So if you have images out there that poorly reflect your personal life, that's going to be, the department doesn't want that transferring over to a department issue as well. Getting back on track here, threats. Any type of threats made to any person. So any type of threats of harm, any type of threats of destruction, anything like that can seriously impact. And that's actually questions you will see on your background investigation packet, right? Your PHS. A lot of these will and can be asked, have you ever, shared a nude image of yourself on any social platform or on a text message? That's usually a question you'll see. Have you ever made threats to anyone? Have you ever had a political or prejudicial bias? All these questions could be asked and have a high likelihood of being asked on your PHS. And then the last one, which is the one I get flagged for all the time, is weapons images. So as a firearms instructor, I have social posts out there of me safely operating and training in firearms. Even the intro to this video is a flagged post, right? So those are perfect examples of where it's like, hey, why am I getting flagged for this? This isn't anything wrong. Yes, but that's just the way social media works, and that's the way the review and the background check does it when they run it. So then when they see it, so while my images of proper and safe firearms handling and training could be articulated, maybe you have a image, or maybe you've seen someone have an image where they post a firearm in their hand while also consuming alcohol. Those are, bam, 2 flags, and then 1, you have a flag for firearms, 2, you have a flag for alcohol, then 3, you have a flag for holding a firearm while either pretending or showcasing the intoxication or consumption of alcohol. And that right there can get you disqualified right off the bat. So yeah, I mean, even someone such as myself who practices and trains these techniques of presenting yourself professionally in the public sector, even I'll get a flag. Actually, I think I have multiple flags for weapon imaging posts. And once again, they are all in a actual legal training matter. But yeah, these are a multitude. Now, what can you do about these things? Well, first and foremost, if you have any imaging out there in social media that doesn't properly reflect who you are now as a person and as a professional, get rid of it. You don't need it. Just get rid of it. Take it down. The other thing you need to be doing with your social media, because you're getting, and this isn't an attempt to hide something because they may still ask you to grant them access, but you want to make sure all your social media is as locked and secure as private as possible when going through the hiring process and your career. Because once again, you're getting ready to become a public figure, a public servant in the law enforcement field, whether that's as a patrol officer, a special agent, corrections, doesn't matter, right? Even if you were getting into EMS or dispatch, any type of public safety matter where you're considered a public figure, you're going to need to present yourself professionally, and that includes off duty, right? If you get in trouble off duty, you can still get fired for conduct unbecoming of an officer, right? You can still get not hired for stuff that you did when you were, a teenager, but you still leave it up. So they think that properly reflects who you are now because you decided to leave it up. Take down any imaging and any posts that do not properly reflect who you are now as a mature adult and a professional, right? And then also secure all your social media, because once again, you're a public figure. You don't need people having just unfeathered access to your social media. Highly encourage both of those before you even start going through the hiring process. If you're even thinking about possibly pursuing law enforcement now or in the future, you should probably go through, clean up any social media that you've had previously and currently, and then go from there. There's a lot more to this. Actually, I might want to dive into these a little bit more one-on-one in individual videos or break them down into sections, but there's a lot here. These are initial flags that just running you through a background check will just pop up right off the bat. So, we run a social media check with a background check for candidates that request it. And when we do that, every single one of these can pop a flag for, actually it's titled flag behavior for behavior composition. So keep that in mind. It gives us a whole report on it and everything along those lines. So just know that they're doing that as well, right? And they might even ask you for access to your social. So keep that in mind. I hope this helps. There's a lot of great information when you dive into your background and really learn it. One thing I will say is just make sure you're prepared before you apply. If you're already in the application process, it's not too late. Get prepared now, but make sure that you're doing everything that you can. Make sure your references are already contacted, ready to go. Make sure you have all your resident histories, everything that you can do to prep. You want to get that done. as I said before, I hope this helps. There's those gifts in the description for you, the Getting Started workshop, walk you through every phase of the hiring process, as well as a coaching call with any member of my team or even myself if you would like it. Stay safe, and I will see you next time.